Lios Enchim Anyavu. Greetings, everyone. May the Creator bless you all. And welcome to my podcast, the Good to E Medicine Podcast. I'll be your host, Pete Rodriguez.
All my native people stand up. All my native people stand up.
We had an elder that started. Her name was Nora Pratt, and she prayed over 3 varieties of our corn. And it was a beautiful blessing that she gave us. It lasted over an hour. She had those 3 varieties of seed in her hand that she kind of fondled and just went on to, as she prayed, remembered our ancestors, remembered what that corn used to taste like. But she was really quite elderly at the time, and she remembered those things, what it tasted like and all that. But in 1998, then, with that prayer, that's what inspired us to start the Pawnee Seed Preservation Project. It's come a long ways from those 3 varieties. Some of our seeds that we got back from families, and thank goodness that the Culture Committee and our Nasharo Council of Chiefs, we have 8 chiefs, they did a shout out to our community, and they said, if you have any of those seeds from Nebraska, please give them to Deb, myself. And so I kept track of those. I had grown some seeds, some eagle corn in the 1980s in Colorado. But when I moved home in 1997, that's when, we were just curious, where's our corn? We're supposed to be people of the corn. We're supposed to be people of the buffalo. And so that's kind of been the quest to get our seeds back. So some families had seeds, and tell you the truth, they weren't kept in very good conditions. Some were in tin cans and kept out in a hot shed, and we couldn't get them to germinate. And we thought, well, we'll have to label that one extinct. We had help from scientists, Dr. Tom Hogelmeyer. He was the chairman of the technical steering group of the U.S. Germplasm Enhancement of Maize. So he was world known for his work. And I was so thankful to get him to help us with the project. I thought for sure I'd have to write like $1 million grant and put him in as a great expert and to get guidance on the genetics that we needed to know. But as it turns out, we captured him over a cup of coffee. So he helped us with some of the work that we needed, and guided us to write down all the characteristics of the corn. So he devised a chart that we started using, and it's been about, I think this is our 7th year that we've been using his information to collect data on our plant growth characteristics so that we can document the uniqueness of our corn. He himself was also a teacher at the University of Nebraska, and he had at one point in our seed collection, we had this striped corn, and we called it the knife chief corn because it looked as if the corn itself had cross-pollinated, and we thought, well, okay, knife cheek family. Dennis, way back when, turned into a mad scientist and came up with this striped corn. But as it turns out, Tom Hugelmeyer informed me that one of his students had unearthed a buffalo skull that was buried in the sandy hills of Nebraska. And in it were hundreds of corn seeds inside. And they were in good shape, and in such good shape that he was even able to study the DNA in there. But what our chiefs were glad to see is that it was that same striped corn that we had labeled knife chief corn. And so they said, take that knife chief name out of there. We're going to go with this striped now. Now we know it's just one of our varieties that we have. So we've had quite a undertaking to take seeds that our ancestors had grown for hundreds of years and try to get them all back, because we knew we had a lot of varieties of our corn. And so around sometime in January 2004, I started communicating with Ronnie O'Brien. And she's, as it turns out, a staunch Irish Catholic that lives in Nebraska. But she was working at the Archway Museum in Nebraska, which is a museum that tells a great story about all the settlers that came through along the trails, and like the Oregon Trail. But the museum didn't tell any story about the original people that lived there. And so she had wanted to, as the education coordinator for the Archway, she wanted to still tell the story about the first people. And so she contacted me, and for several years we were on the phone, and she wanted to grow some of our corn. And at the time she wrote an email and she said, I have been a gardener in central Nebraska all my life and am prepared to apply all my knowledge of our soil, weather, insects, and other intruders to help bring back the crops of the Pawnee through horticultural cycle. I am incredibly excited to be involved with a project that could bring back the Nebraska crops that were here in the 1800s by the Pawnee. And so this was a promise that, she wanted to do. And I took that to our culture committee, and they debated, well, why should we have a Chadi sucker grow our corn for us? But my only argument was, well, the corn is from Nebraska, and that's where it did really well for hundreds of years. And now we're in Oklahoma trying to grow it in this clay soil, and it seems like it should be growing better. And so they did decide to trust this Ronnie O'Brien, and I believe that they made the best decision, because it has proven herself to be trusted, and really has confronted all the problems that we had. It seemed like we were weakening the seed, and then when we sent the corn up to Nebraska to grow in what we call our science gardens, they would get strong again. And so it was like our seeds remembered. They had like a soil memory where they just naturally thrived in that Nebraska sandy loam soil. So it's been 18 years now since Ronnie and I started working together. And at this time, we have 20 gardens that we grow in Nebraska. We're taking our count right now, so more than likely it'll be around 20. And then we've had about 19 in our Pawnee neighborhood here in Oklahoma. So we, at the present time, are getting ready for our seed blessing, and most all of us have that dirt under our nails getting our soil ready. And so what kind of agriculture do we do? I personally do what I call it the mound method. It's the way that our ancestors had planted, and that's to build up the soil into a small mound that's probably about, I don't know, 1.5 feet tall, and then spreads out about 3 feet across. And I really like doing that, especially down here in Oklahoma, because I could get that clay and build this wall for the mound. And in the center of the mound, that's where I'll put other mulch that I always have a big mulch pile. And I'll, put in maybe some fish emulsion, or I used to tease that we would all, instead of being the Indian that planted fish in every mound, like we're historically portrayed, that we would put a fish stick in each mound. But yeah, in the center, I'll put nutritional soil in there, and then plant right in the middle of each one. So it's as if I'm building a pot out on the lawn, and I'll probably have around 100 of those mounds, and they're about 1 foot or so apart from each other. Wow. And in each mound, I can plant about 5 seeds in each hill. We'll call them hills sometimes. But other kinds of agriculture that we do in Nebraska, we have our science gardens, and so we have botanists and master gardeners up there under I call her my little corn sister, Ronnie O'Brien. So she manages everyone that's in Nebraska with the science gardens, and so there might be really small plots. Well, that's fine, because we only had a few seeds to start out with. And some of those seeds we had to wait years to get. They were in some of our sacred bundles, and we would wait until they were opened, and then there'd only be about 20 seeds in there. So besides corn, we had different squashes and beans as well. So those science gardens are small. But recently we've been able to have cover cropping at an actual farm. And it's wonderful. This farm that's about 30 miles west of Lincoln, Nebraska, when his family first moved there, the Pawnees were still living there. And so that area where the Pawnees live, there was kind of a low land, and there was like a creek, that tributary that went through there, and that's where the Pawnees lived. But because this family had like 7,000 acres, they never touched that land. They always left it alone because the Pawnees had at that time helped that family out for a couple winters and got them through. And so out of respect, they never touched that area. But they did cultivate. They were even did the typical what you would imagine Nebraska farmers to do: plow, set up those giant irrigating things for depleting the aquifers to water. But then this Dell, through the generations, Dell Fike, who is part of that family, decided that, you know what, I'm not going to till anymore. I'm going to just do cover cropping and use the cattle that he had to be his equipment. And they can tromp the land, they can add the fertilizer. This cover cropping then became a method that practiced water conservation and actually produced a yield that outshone the gardeners that still plowed and irrigated. So we're real happy to be with Dell, and we're really happy that we're able to use the word acres now for growing out our seed. Another kind of agriculture that we do is we have some use of a greenhouse. We do want to have more greenhouses built here in Oklahoma and also up in Nebraska. And that's going to be great because with climate, the shift in our climate, I mean, like last growing season, we had 17 days of 45-mile-an-hour winds, and it really played havoc on our plants. We had to go in there and park all the vehicles next to the fields as a wind block and try to see what we could do to shore up the corn so it wouldn't blow over. That was a lot of days, 17 days in a row, nonstop. So that's one of the hopes, is if we could have, that might be a sign of the times that we have greenhouses, more greenhouses. Mm-hmm. And plus in September last year, it got to be teetering at the freezing mark. And so, the weather just seems to be a little bit unpredictable. Then our last sort of agriculture that we do is we're transplanting some of we have some land that was donated back to us, to the Pawnee up in Nebraska. We have 550 acres in one location and then a few others, one 20 acres and another probably about, I want to guess, maybe 30 acres. And so what we would like to do our ancestors had wild potatoes and different turnips, and we noticed that we don't see that on those properties. And so that's one of our projects, is the transplanting of wild potatoes back near the creeks, where they love to have it moist and by the tree line, even up to the tree line where they have partial shade. So how does climate change seem to be affecting the way we do our gardening? And I'm hoping, that Pete will ask this question to everyone out in the audience too. But for us, we've kind of adapted, because in Oklahoma we've had so much drought. In the hills that I was describing that earlier, the mound method, We also incorporate what is called the Hugelkulter Technique. And that's a German word for a type of gardening. It's Hugelkultur. It's a great word to Google. In the Hugelkulter technique, typically the Germans had buried or dug up and then laid down some rotten wood or decomposing wood. And then this would act like a sponge for the soil that was topped over it. And there would be a water release that could keep your plants going in without having to water it. So I like using the Hugelkulter. Instead of using decomposing wood, I just simply put at the very bottom of the hill, I'll put corn cobs and then fill it with the soil that I want. And that absorbs the water and does a slow release. We also have some equipment to make mulch, and we have a lot of corn cobs, so we mulch those and use those on top. That it helps deter the weeds and also makes it nice to keep the moisture in. So another, I don't know how to relate it with the climate change and the changes that we're making. We are putting in more and more the pollinator gardens so that we can recruit all the help from our bees and butterflies and also hope to sustain that they live on. So another method that we would like to try to address climate change is something that our ancestors did years ago when they had all these giant settlements. And, everyone realizes that when you put corn hills close together or cornfields close together, that there's that chance of cross-pollinating. So what did the Pawnees do when they had so many varieties of corn? They would have had to travel miles and miles to get to their fields in order to assure that they wouldn't cross-pollinate. Well, our ancestors were real smart. They actually created these areas that had berm hills. So there was dirt that was mound up about 4 feet, and then it was about 4 feet across. And then on that 4 feet across, that's where they grew a thicket of sunflowers. And so when sunflowers grow to be 12 feet tall, there was inside that barrier for the berm hill method, it had its own little climate in there. And so that's how we were able to have gardens next to each other. So we want to try that out. We haven't done that yet. But one of these days we want to be as smart as our ancestors and try to do that. So anyway, it's been quite an experience. We've had every year we listen, observe, pray, really connect with our corn, and every year the corn teaches us more and more. And one of the things I like to say when everybody says they have a Three Sisters garden, I want to say that, well, we have a Four Sisters garden because we do grow our corn surrounded with sunflowers. We don't have the berm hills, but when we have our little thicket of sunflowers growing around our gardens, that attracts pollinators. Plus, it does keep the deer and our we don't even have rabbits go through there. I think their soft, tender noses don't like maneuvering through the sunflowers. But it seems to work. We have they act as fences. They act as wind blocks. So we're happy to use that method. And I enjoy talking to our Nebraskans because we, they're the corn huskers, they're sports. And so I always like the Rasm saying that the Pawnees were the original corn huskers, literally. That's what I have for you, Pete, for now.
Beautiful. Thank you, Deb, for sharing that knowledge. I'm going to open up the hand raising. If someone wants to come up and up to the stage and ask Deb any questions or share some thoughts on especially climate change. You mentioned a lot of different types of methods. The mound method, I've used that. I'm in southern Arizona here in Tucson, and I've noticed the climate change here. It seems to be getting a lot hotter. Every summer it gets super hot here in Tucson. Tomorrow, it's going to be 90 degrees here tomorrow, and it's barely going to be, we're still in March. It's going to be 90. And where I'm at, it gets a little bit hotter. I can probably add on 2 more degrees, so about 92. So I've noticed it's getting really, really hot. Every year it gets hotter, and we plant our crops here a little bit earlier. We start everything just because, it's just getting hotter. I've noticed it. The gardeners here, the farmers, my dad's been doing it all his life, and he says, no, just start them early. It's just getting way too hot. And we do use the water saving methods. We used a waffle garden. Have you tried that, Deb? Like a waffle garden? I know you mentioned a lot of techniques, and I really like the sunflowers, the way you make those like a natural fence thicket. Have you tried the waffle garden techniques?
It sounds intriguing. No, you'll have to tell me about that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, it rains a lot here in the during the monsoons around June or July. So we try to capture some of the rain either in, I have some rain barrels, and some people have cisterns or a method to capture rain, but a waffle garden just looks like a waffle, but it's in, if you could picture a waffle but in the dirt. It's exactly, it looks the same, but it's a little bit inside the dirt, the little squares. So when it rains, or we can channel water into the garden, so the water stays inside the little squares, inside the little waffle garden. That's where we put our seeds and our plants. So it captures the rainfall, and it stays there. So instead of running off, off into the desert, it actually captures the rain. So it helps a lot in saving that rainwater for the garden. So we do a little bit of that as well. But yeah, thank you very much. That's a wealth of knowledge. That's one of the reasons I really wanted you to come on here and share some of your knowledge, some of that indigenous knowledge. And I do have a question. You mentioned the seed blessings, and that's coming up. When does that take place, and what is that, the seed blessings?
Well, we we believe that our our ancestral doctors use plants to perform healing ceremonies. And in those contexts, the ceremonies were necessary to trigger the healing power of those plants. So our spiritual seed blessers are designated by the seed keepers in Sharo, and we conduct a ceremony in the springtime to bless the seeds, as like how Nora Pratt did. They'll bless them, but of course the men are part of this ceremony, and they do their thing at sunrise, and our lady seed blesser will meet the public and do the public blessing part. But the ceremony, we believe, will trigger the power of those plants as they grow. And then, of course, we add our prayers and songs as the plants grow. And when we have our harvest reveal in the fall, we celebrate by recognizing all the growers and pray that the crops offer us strength and good health. So I guess the blessings kind of the kickoff of all of the blessings that we do thereafter. We just believe that the power of prayer is strong.
Oh, thank you, Deb, for sharing. Yeah, I was in another room or a call about seed saving, and I know in our cultures, native indigenous cultures, it's so much more. A seed carries like pretty much your whole culture, and the music, culture, songs, your language, the seeds carry all of that, and it's just much more than just planting a seed in the ground. It's a lot more meaning to us, I'm sure, for Deb and all of us here. And I don't know if you want to add a little something, Waylon. And I did open the room. Let me make sure. Yeah, we got one. If you want to come on up, just please.
Yeah.
And just it's open now. You can either ask Deb questions. I'm pretty sure she has a wealth of knowledge to share. And go ahead, Waylon.
Yeah, Deb. Hey, I just had one quick question. Actually, you know what? I'm going to try to be a good moderator and welcome Isabel to the stage. Isabel, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you, Waylon. Deb, unfortunately, I missed most of your presentation because I was training my team, but I'm coming to you from Algonquin territory up in Canada. And I was excited when I heard that you were going to come speak, because I'm just working on a project right now where we're going to be taking 129 acres in a farm, and the plan is to plant some of our indigenous, traditional plants and have the community here work it. So when I heard that you were coming, I was so excited because I don't know anything about gardening. I'm just helping organize stuff with the people that are running the show. But I'm just wondering, how can we get in touch with you? I don't know if the woman who I'm working with knows a lot about gardening either, but and I know it'll be different up here, Algonquins, and it's the different territories and different plants, but I'd love to know how to get in touch with you.
The easiest way is to go to Facebook, my old friend Facebook, and then send a message there. I'm on as an individual, but we have over the years used Pawnee Seed Preservation Project on Facebook, and it's like a diary. And so we have posted for years on that. But yes, you're welcome to message through the Pawnee Seed Preservation Project, and there's several of us that check those messages. And I see Gina's out in the audience. She's one of the ones that checks the messages. So we'll get back to you. And good luck with your project, Isabel. That's just wonderful that you're starting this endeavor.
Miigwech, yeah, it's pretty exciting. We're gonna have the gardens, and we're looking to get some of the Ojibwe spirit horses, and just we're trying to bring as much culture back as we can, and it's kind of in an urban setting too. So, yeah, I mean I'd appreciate any help and support that we can get from you guys, because you've already started everything and you've been successful. So if we can learn, I know the climate's different, but I'm sure there's a lot of things that we can learn from you. So miigwech, and I'm wishing you success.
There is one thing. We have had some of our gardeners, when they go to germinate the seeds, they'll germinate them in paper towels, and it's called the rag doll method. And so what happens is when it starts to germinate, then it'll start rooting, and they have waited for that root to get even almost a foot long. And then they have Jack Reed was one of our gardeners that he also donated land from Nebraska to our tribe. But he actually invented this tool that was made out of a tire pump, an old tire pump that would carefully plant those foot-long seedlings, and that really helped, to get a start on that, because I don't know if you would have greenhouses to start your plants inside or what, but that's just another method that's being used, and I can have someone call you on that if you
All my native people stand up. All my native people. Yeah.
I have kind of a little story about watering, because traditionally we've been told, how we would plant our crops in Nebraska and then take off and go out on the buffalo hunts and then return to the gardens. Watering then really wasn't done that much while everybody was gone, and if at all. And what we had found out is, at one of our science gardens in Nebraska, Ronnie O'Brien was my little corn sister. She was worried. She didn't want to water. She kept, praying. She's that staunch Irish that prayed to all the saints, and anyway, so she woke up in the middle of the night. She had this dream about watering, and basically the dream was go out to the garden. So she went out in the middle of the night and walked through the corn patch, and her legs got wet walking along, and she can't see very good, so she went back in and got a better flashlight and magnifying glass, and she went back out, and she found water droplets all over the plants. And then where she lives, she has that GMO corn nearby, almost surrounding her. And so she also walked out in that garden, that field, and she went down 2 giant rows and only found 2 droplets on the lower leaves, whereas our plants had droplets everywhere, and they were running down the plant as if it was watering itself. And there was really a low dew point that night too. So, there is some plants especially in the rainforests that are known to water themselves that way, take moisture out of the air and form droplets. So we were really happy to have the court show that to us.
I know a little something about those older, varieties just from my limited experience. Some of them are kind of purplish, and they have right near the base, they have like fingers with mucus. There's like a mucus that grows around that and sequesters nitrogen from the air. It makes its own nitrogen. So it does its own fertilization. And some of my buddies down south, they have those varieties. But the problem is, again, grow outs, because whomever you're going to have a crop like that, they're going to be responsible for actually taking care of it, growing it out, and then getting seeds back to the person that lent it to them. So that's what they're doing in and around. And I've got some friends who's got all different kinds of varieties. Like a lot of these Andes, these varieties from Peru, a lot of these corn varieties that went through extreme stress, water stress and cold stress, etc. Some of those varieties are almost like grass, and they're different. They're not like the corn that we're used to. Some of them are a little wedge shaped, etc. So I'm interested in varieties like that because I believe firmly that the native varieties around the world, if we would have basically been allowed to do our trade routes, they were traded. Down Central America, we have evidence of people coming up as far as the Southwest area. And then the Southwest natives here, they would take it to Salt Lake. And a lot of our relatives would come down towards Salt Lake because of the salt and the trade, right? So there was a pretty good route established over here. So different kinds of corn varieties end up in and around this area here in around the Navajo Nation and some of the Pueblo tribes in and around. Some more purebred varieties. And so, like I said, I really enjoy talking to you. It sounds like I have the same vibe as you in as far as really wanting to secure your corn and secure your land for your people, and you're self-sustaining, and you're knowledgeable about regenerative kinds of production and taking care of things. So I really appreciate you, and bless your people, and let your relatives know that other people are praying for them, and if we ever need to collaborate and support each other, I'm right there. I'd be an available person. So appreciate you, Deb, and all of you to the room, Isabel and Waylon. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Deb is a wealth of knowledge, seed keeper, and those are really good words and advice. We need to secure those seeds for our tribes, and I'm surprised also that hasn't been done, and it should be done. And I'm right there with you guys. I started UOM blue corn. It actually sprouted, and very, very excited. It's from our tribe. It's a blue corn, and I got the seeds from an organization here in Tucson. It's called Native Seed Search, and they have a seed bank here in Tucson. Huge walk-in seed bank, and they save a lot of native seeds. So if you're ever down in Tucson, Deb or Kevin, Isabel, they give you tours. We can just do a tour. Maybe they have a lot of the seeds they don't give them out, or they're not available because they're saving them. But it's really interesting. They have a lot of seeds, even the ancient Diosente. They have some of those first seeds, the ancestor of corn, there as well. But I don't think those are definitely not available right now for anyone. But well, Deb, I guess we are finished. I want to thank you, Deb Echo-Hawk, for coming on the club, Gathering of Nations. And Waylon for moderating, Kevin, everyone that spoke today. And this episode was recorded, so I will have it available for anyone that wants to listen to it from the beginning. I know Isabel and somebody else might have came in later. It will be available. I'm not sure when, but I'll let everyone know, probably on Instagram, if they want to listen to it. I think it's very very valuable information to have recorded. A lot of this knowledge that Deb has, and Kevin as well, and Waylon, all of us have a lot of knowledge to share. But thank you, Deb Echo-Hawk. Thank you very much for coming on this room today into our club and sharing with us what you're doing with the Pawnee Seed Preservation. Thank you very much.